just want to give you I just want to give you all something to keep in the back of your mind as we go through these different points. So these are really the three main takeaways, really the overarching theme of what I'm going to be talking about here today. The first thing, we're going to spend a good amount of time on this, is how are private lenders currently using tech? So these are probably the folks that you guys have interacted with before on doing any of your loans. We're going to talk about how they're using that, and more specifically, what that looks like from your perspective as an investor or a borrower. From there, we're going to talk a little bit about tech designed specifically for you as an investor. Some of these things that may be able to create some efficiencies within your business, maybe help you take your business to the next level. Now, in that same vein, I also want, this is going to be the most important thing that I talk about here today, is using the technology and the information to make decisions to better your business. It's one thing to be aware of technology and even use it in some capacity, but if you're not leveraging the technology and the information to make decisions to better your business, to stay a step ahead, the tech really is useless in that sense. So again, folks, those are the three overarching themes that I want you guys to be thinking about as I go through my presentation here today. As Rodney said, if you guys have any questions about what I'm speaking about, feel free to throw them in the chat. He will definitely let me know and we'll address those. So tech from the lender side of things right now, the first thing I'll say is lenders in our industry, folks, have fully committed to technology. The technology on the lender side, it blows my mind even to think about how much opportunity there is out there and how many things there are for lenders to consider as far as technology is concerned these days. So that's my first point, is technology on the lender side, they're adapting to it. A lot of them have already implemented and embraced technology. If you guys are serial investors, if you do loans with any of these lenders, you've probably already experienced this in some capacity. The first thing that I want to talk about as far as lenders is borrower-facing applications and portals. So the application itself can allow borrowers to submit new loan requests directly to the lender. This is really helpful if you as a borrower or an investor know exactly where you want to go for funding. If you've worked with a lender previously, this is a really great way to kind of stay a step ahead, get that loan information in their hands ASAP. You know, I always think of investors as being people that are proactive. They really like to try to be involved or stay ahead of the game when possible. This is a really great way to do that. Oftentimes, if you call up a lender, let's say you're trying to get some feelers as far as where you may be able to qualify for, you may talk to 2 or 3 different people before you actually get on the phone with a loan officer. If you directly submit an application to that lender, typically those go directly to loan officers. So they're going to see those. They're probably going to be the ones to reach out and give you a call. So that's one way that the application can really help you as a borrower or an investor. The other thing that most oftentimes it does, if you submit an application through one of these, is that it also creates you an account within that lender's portal. So that's kind of where I want to move towards next, is looking at what does that borrower portal look like? What does it do for you and why is it important? So after you've submitted the application, that's really just the beginning, right? There's still a lot of things that are going to take place. And as an investor, there's still a lot of ways that you can be proactive and involved in the deal. One of those ways is uploading documents and getting them the things that they need to get through the underwriting process. Most of these portals that I'm referring to, folks, are known as loan origination softwares. These are typically what lenders use to get a loan through the entire process, starting with the loan officer, whoever's reviewing the deal, getting it through to the processing team, underwriting, so on and so forth. These loan origination softwares have been adapted by a majority of the lenders in our private space. So you as an investor probably at one point or another will be asked or invited to log into these portals. As I mentioned before, typically this is done when you fill out an application for a lender. Now, one of the things that I mentioned is allowing you as the borrower to upload documents directly to the lender. This is done in a secure and centralized location. That's a really, really important piece when we're talking about this. Obviously, security is important because we're looking at things like financial documents, even things with social security and other personal information. So security obviously is going to be at the forefront of our minds. The other thing is having it in a centralized location where multiple people can have access to it. So you as the borrower should always have access to your documents, in my opinion. If you are a borrower or an investor, I would want to make sure that you can actually get access to these documents when you're in the loan process. The other thing is on the lender side, it allows their team and committee members and whoever it may be to have access to that same information in a centralized location. One of the other things that it does for you as a borrower or an investor is gives you transparency on the deal process, timeline, and where exactly that stands in this point in time. Typically, you know, on the private money side of things, what we see nowadays is anywhere between 14 to 21 day closings. Typically, you as an investor, there's a lot of time that passes there where you're looking at your next deal. You're trying to make decisions. You're trying to plan ahead, right? Having this transparency by being able to log in to the portal, see exactly where this deal is, see when the closing is going to occur, allows you to plan accordingly, make sure you have the necessary funds in the according bank accounts, allows you, like I said before, to kind of plan your next project, right? Maybe if you're even finishing up a project, really allowing you to plan out that next draw request or the next thing within the rehab planning. So logging in, if you're invited to log into a lender's portal, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend being involved in the process when you're able to. One of the other things that's typically going to take place through these portals, through these loan origination systems, is credit reporting. So typically, you know, on the private side of things, there are a few lenders that will do loans without asking for a credit report. A majority of lenders nowadays, they're going to look for a tri-merge report. Why and how that is pretty self-explanatory. Why is we want to make sure, the lenders want to make sure that you're a trustworthy borrower, you're going to make your payments, and that you're actually going to be profitable as well on this deal. That's one of the things that they take into consideration when looking at this is your history, making sure that you're successful in these transactions. One of the things when I talk about lenders, folks, I want you to think about this as a partnership. You as a borrower, you're probably going to work with lenders multiple times if you're doing enough of these things. You want to set up a long-term relationship with these lenders. That's going to be beneficial for you in the long run in a number of different ways. But first and foremost, it just builds a stronger relationship that can help cut down on closing times, create more efficiencies between you and that lender. Having the transparency to understand what they're looking for in a credit report is part of that relationship. I think that helps you understand exactly where you're going to qualify as far as rate, leverage, and things of that nature. How that's taking place, like I mentioned, typically it's happening right inside the loan origination software. A number of these softwares have integrated with credit reporting agencies, allowing it to take place in that same location. And this goes back to my point of centralized location and storage, because you guys as investors, I agree, should always have the ability to review your reports. So if you've had your credit report ordered, I believe you should have access to that. Most oftentimes that's available through this portal that I'm speaking about. The other thing that typically happens through here is draw requests. So let's say you're working on a project that has, you know, a larger rehab budget. It may be broken out into a few different draws. You're going to most oftentimes be placing those requests through some type of portal. Really important to familiarize yourselves with these portals. Ask any questions. Typically, the lenders have dedicated people that can help you understand these processes, really understand the timing of these things, support as far as logging in, seeing certain information, etc. So all of these things, folks, that I just mentioned are things that you would probably want to keep on your radar. Typically, like I said, if you fill out that online application, some type of an email or something is going to follow inviting you to log in and see where that application stands. You see here at the bottom of my slide, this note, leveraging transparency and being active in the loan process is a great, great way to develop that relationship with your lenders. I'll tell you, I work with a lot of lenders in the industries. Their most successful borrowers are people that are involved in the process and they understand exactly what's going on. This tech, guys, is a very, very great way to do so. Some of the other ways, this is Lender Tech Continued. So this is some of the other ways that lenders are using technology and leveraging in their businesses. And more specifically, this is some of the ways that you as a borrower or investor may interact with those technologies. So one of the things that we're seeing more and more of are rate or loan calculators. These are things that are going to allow you as an investor or typically a broker to be able to see exactly where a scenario is going to qualify. That's going to include things like rate, the leverage, the total loan amount, etc. So this is a really great way for you as an investor to make decisions. If you can compare these rates and these scenarios across different lenders, really helps you allow yourself and your business to make the best decision as far as financing is concerned, to set you up for success on not only that project, but projects ahead, right? Most oftentimes, if you're using the BRRRR strategy, you're not thinking about just what you're getting on that initial loan, but what am I going to be able to get when I refinance this loan as well? So these rate calculators, folks, a massive tool for you as an investor to be able to really see where you're going to qualify for, see where you want to bring your deal, and make your next decision. The other thing that I want to talk a little bit about here as far as lenders are concerned are e-signature technologies. So more and more lenders are starting to adopt these, not necessarily for closing. Some of that stuff is really still a wet signature. Some of that stuff still has to take place in person, but some of the more initial type documents, those are really starting to be done more through e-signature technologies. Some of the most popular ones that you guys are probably aware of are DocuSign. There's a number of them out there. More and more lenders are starting to adopt these and implement them into their processes. And you as a borrower should be aware of these. One thing that I would definitely suggest, maybe even set up your own account. Most of these you can do for free, right? You don't necessarily need to subscribe to an e-signature platform. But if you can set up your own account, what that allows you to do is go back in there and see historic documents that you've signed. I think just like anything else, loan documents, it's really important for you guys to be able to access this historical information. Having an account with these things, so when a lender sends you something through, let's just say DocuSign, and you're asked to sign it, it stores a copy of that on your account. If you don't have an account, it's going to be really tough for you to be able to backtrack and find that document. So one of the things that I would encourage you guys to consider, taking a look at some of these e-signature platforms. If you already know your lenders are using some of these, try to go ahead and set yourself up with an account. It's really pretty self-explanatory on how to use them. But like I said, having access to that historical document and information can be really invaluable for your technology. One of the other things that I'd mention here before we move on, keeping yourself up to date on these technologies that lenders may be using. It's invaluable for you guys to know exactly what might be arising come the future. If you aren't aware of these technologies and you see an email come from DocuSign, you may not necessarily open it up. So really important to have these conversations with your lenders, find out if they are using any of these things, and you yourself as an investor, stay aware of them. Tools like this Think Realty webinar series, all of their podcasts, very, very great ways to stay in tune with what's coming into the market, the new technologies that are available. I definitely encourage all of you to immerse yourself in all of this information and these technologies that are coming into the industry. Try to stay aware of them. You may find something that comes onto the scene that can bring your business to the next level. Rodney, I see a question came through on the chat there. Is that something we wanted to answer at this time?
No, that was just a reminder for everybody to put them in there.
Beautiful. So moving forward here, folks, I want to talk about you as the investor and some technologies that I've seen enter the space and some technologies that I've personally seen help some investors along the way. So I'll kind of preface all of this by saying what I said earlier when we were talking about lenders is there is more and more technology flooding our industry and flooding this sector of business than you can even wrap your head around. I go to, anywhere from 8 to 12 conferences a year for this industry. Almost every single one of them, I see a new tech provider that I had never heard of before. So the amount of these people and the amount of these technology solutions that are entering our industry, the number just keeps going up. Now, for you as an investor specifically, all of this is starting to trickle down. Really, when I first entered this industry, everybody, as far as technologies, were targeting lenders specifically. Like I mentioned, lenders have already adapted this technology. They have already implemented this technology into their business. It had then trickled down to brokers. A majority of brokers have started to adapt and implement technology into their processors. Now we are really starting to see these solutions trickle all the way down to you, the investors. So some of the stuff that I've seen pop up lately that I think is super awesome: inspection and valuation applications. So these are actual apps that you have on your phone, and this can help you with draw requests, inspection completions, just valuations of work completed. Very, very great stuff going on here with new companies that are popping up every day. One of the most recent ones that I saw allows you to take a panoramic video, or picture rather, of completed work within a project. What it does is it geotags exactly the location, so the lender knows this is the exact project that we're talking about, allows them to see how much work has actually been completed, all in real time, folks. So you're standing in the property and the lender can see this stuff on their side. So really, really amazing stuff happening here on the not only the valuation side, but just as far as gathering leads. I've seen a really cool technology enter the space, which allows you to not only build a rehab budget, but see exactly where market prices are going to be on materials related to that budget. So really comprehensive information being put out through these technology platforms. A lot of them are cutting down on closing times because they're creating efficiencies. Being able to take that picture in the property, get it over to the lender, and have them approve your next draw or whatever it may be, can really take not only one day, but multiple days off that timeline. One of the other things that we've seen enter is things like property watch lists, or other lead sources. One of the ones that I'm sure most of you are familiar with, Connected Investors, really great way to see what properties are entering the market. It's a really great way for lenders to see what properties investors are purchasing and looking for financing for as well. I would also encourage you guys, if you're not already, look at things like LinkedIn. Keep an eye on these Think Realty webinars and newsletters for these technologies. Often companies like myself and other offerings within our space are featured within these offerings. So it's a really great way to stay ahead of the game and find out what exactly new offerings are available for you as an investor. CRMs. I'm sure you guys have probably heard this before. I don't really think it's necessarily pertinent for you as an investor to have a CRM. Now, if you're an investor that has a lot of properties nationwide, multiple property managers, multiple lenders, this can be a massive tool to help you stay on top of your game. I'm going to take a step back here, folks, and I'm going to give you a real life example of how come leveraging technology and investing matters. Grant Cardone. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of him. You either love him or you hate him. He is somewhat of a controversial figure, but one thing remains true about him. He is one of the best real estate investors in the country. His portfolio is massive. It's nationwide, and it continues to grow. If you've ever heard him talk, or any large investor for that matter, they almost always talk about infrastructure, technology, and the way that it helps manage their business. There's a lot of information. If you have a lot of properties and you're a serial investor, there's a lot of information coming in from those properties, from that area, market rents, etc. Having some type of a tracking mechanism for that information can be massive for you to stay ahead of the game, stay on top of your existing portfolio, and grow your portfolio for the days to come. Some of the things that if I was using a CRM as an investor, Some of the main things that I would have in there are my third-party people, any brokers or lenders that you may work with. It also can track conversations that you've had with them recently. So, we're all shakers and movers. We've got a million things going on. This can really help identify when the last conversation was, what that looked like, etc. So some of the things that I've seen more of these sophisticated CRMs allow you to do is have like lender matrices within it. So you can actually see, does this scenario qualify with this lender? Mapping capabilities. So you can see, I have this deal that I'm looking at in Georgia. Who are my lenders that know Georgia really well? Maybe somebody that's set up there. Some of these CRMs, folks, can get very, very in depth with the amount of information that you have in there. It all comes back to the main point, folks, of just utilizing the information that's available to you. You can't use that information if it's not organized and you don't know where it lies. So I would encourage you guys, try to centralize as much of this information as you can. A CRM, a good sophisticated CRM, can be a very, very good way of doing so. So my overarching theme of today, using this technology and information to make decisions for yourself. This is what lenders are doing. This is what the best brokers are doing. And this is certainly what the best investors are doing out there as well. All of this stuff that I've talked about today provides some type of data or information that's going to be useful to you, whether it's, the status of a current loan that you're looking to get funded now, whether it's something about your portfolio and the market rents that have changed in a specific area. Always, always important to review this information and utilize it to actually make decisions that are going to better your company. I've seen a lot of people that have adapted as much technology as you can, thinking that that's going to be the solution to every problem that they have. Let me tell you, people, that's absolutely not the case. You need to make sure that the technology is a fit for you and that it's going to give you information that's useful for you to make decisions with. Using lenders' borrower portals to review documents that are required, closing timelines, even fees that you're going to have to pay for, right? Some of these stuff, guys, if it's a large loan, there could be a lot of fees that are associated. You want to make sure you've got that money and those funds liquid so that you can, have no hangups in the process when it comes time to pay for any of these fees or pay your closing costs, etc. So using these portals that I spoke about earlier can be a great way for you not only to stay on top of this specific loan that you're working on, but others that are in the pipeline and your historical ones as well. Like I talked about earlier, having access to previous deal history, seeing where your best properties are can really help you target your next deal, make decisions on areas to avoid. Again, if you have a CRM that can map where certain lenders and contacts are, that can be a really great way to get more detailed or specific advice, information from a lender that knows a specific area. I think we all have had a situation where we might be looking at a loan and a lender within that space that knows that location might be able or might be a little bit more flexible than one that's on the other side of the country. So having that information, guys, can be very valuable to you as well. This is one of the ones that I really want to talk about, is storing information in a centralized location for not only yourself, but any partners that you guys may have as well. Some of you may have a borrowing entity that may be made up of 3 or 4 members. Having information in a centralized location where multiple people can access that information, use it to make decisions, it makes everything run a little bit more smoothly, but then it may also, again, create efficiencies, cut down time, closing times. If one of your partners wasn't aware that they were supposed to go on to DocuSign and e-sign this document that was sent over, it may be another day or 2 before that loan goes through. So having information in a centralized location, making sure everybody is aware of it, really allows you and your partners to collaborate on those loans, just cutting out any unnecessary time. The rehab costs, like I mentioned earlier, if you're making a rehab budget with any of the tools that are out there offered to you guys, Some of them can offer you market costs on materials, even labor costs. We have so many offerings out there that we might not even really think of, like something like an Angie's List, or where we can find GCs or specific people to complete a task for us. There are so many offerings out there, folks. It's really, really incredible. It's really allowing for investors to do more using this information and these efficiencies. And we're going to get into a little bit here what you're going to think about and look at while you're thinking of using technology. So as an investor, you obviously want to be leveraging technologies that are offered to you, or ones that you decide to seek out on your own. There's so many out there. The number one thing that I want you guys to think about when we're talking about technology is it's got to solve a problem. You don't want to implement technology just because it's flashy, just because it's new. You want to make sure that it actually is solving a problem you're experiencing. So that's one of the things to consider when you're looking at this. Is it going to solve a problem or create efficiencies for me? If not, typically not going to be something or technology that's going to improve your business. Oftentimes, folks, technology, there's always some type of a learning curve, right? If you're trying to stick a square peg in a round hole and try to make a technology solve a problem that it's not designed for, or maybe solve a problem that doesn't even exist, oftentimes that can be a step back as opposed to a step forward. It may cause headaches as far as trying to implement or learn the software or technology. But again, it may even create a problem that wasn't there before. So always make sure that a technology that you're considering is solving a problem or creating an efficiency. The other thing is overcome these challenges. Like I said, every piece of tech that you encounter, there's going to be some type of a learning curve. A great way to overcome these challenges or that learning curve is by creating a plan or process of how you're going to implement this into your business. Let's say we're going to look at implementing one of those applications for inspections that I had mentioned. Really talk about it. If you have partners, or if you have a GC crew that you work with, typically talk about it with your team. Implementing these things can be a challenge. You want to make sure that you have a plan in place so that everybody's aware that this is being implemented. You want to make sure you understand exactly where it's going to be within the process and how we are going to implement it. Like I said, that might change after a week of using it. You might change where you use this technology in your process. But again, using a plan or creating a plan or a process to implement technology, I think really, really helps creating a successful relationship using said technology. The other thing to think about when you're looking at tech is take into consideration all costs associated. This is not necessarily always financial. Sometimes there may be a cost of time. You may have to actually train and learn this technology. That's going to be a cost, right? It may also, this is kind of one negative aspect of technology that we've seen over the last 10, 15 years, is it may actually replace a relationship that you have with a person. So let's just say, for example, you had somebody that was doing your rehab budgets, a person on your team that was preparing your rehab budgets, reviewing market prices for things like labor and expenses on materials. And now you're considering implementing a tool to do so instead. You may actually be severing a relationship with somebody. It may not necessarily be bad, right? Because it may be creating efficiencies within your business. It may be reducing overhead costs, but that cost of that relationship may be a cost of the technology. So don't think about it strictly from a financial perspective. Think about the cost of it as a whole and how it may affect your business. If it's not solving a problem, the cost is probably going to be greater than the ROI or the return on that implementation of tech. The other thing that I would mention is research these potential solutions. See if they're popular amongst other investors. See if you've seen anything on Think Realty about this solution or of any of the other news outlets that may be out there. That's a really great way to see if the tech has validity, if it's actually solving a problem for others out there, and if it's worth spending time for you and your business as well. Now, some of the things that you're going to want to leverage for using this tech: training and support, massive, massive thing to leverage as a user. Inquire before even, working on these technologies or signing up for them or anything like that. Inquire about the training and support that's available. As a tech provider, I will tell you, our support team is available all the time. We are offering trainings upon request at any given time. These are very, very important parts to our business as a tech provider, keeping customers happy and making sure they're successful with the product. Too often people sign up for a technology offering. They don't understand exactly how it works. They get frustrated and they push it to the side. That's not successful for you, not successful for the tech that you've chosen to implement. So really important to find out if there's training offered, what that looks like, and then get any support that you can. That's what they're there for. That's what these things are designed for, is to help you. So if you're finding that it's causing more of a struggle than it is helping you, make sure you reach out for training or support. Like I said, oftentimes tech companies are going to provide these things to you. They're going to encourage you to use it. Take advantage of them. Absolutely take advantage of them. The other thing is give feedback while you're using these things. I can't tell you enough, again, from the perspective of a technology provider, how many times we've gotten the feedback of a user and had that implemented into the technology. I would say probably upwards of 80% of the things that we implement in our software are feedback from users. So I'll tell you, even if you don't think so, the technology providers value your feedback, even if it's negative. Try to give it in a polite way, not necessarily come at them, if you will, but definitely give them your feedback. Hey, I think this could be improved. I've seen this done this way before. Really allows technology providers to improve their product, improve the offering that they're giving to you as a user. Like I said, oftentimes these are implemented or used to create better versions of that tech platform. So I am kind of running up towards the end of the presentation here, folks. So I wanted to finalize all the points that I touched on today by looking at some data or some statistics that we've seen within the country as a whole. And then on my next slide, I'm going to get a little bit more detailed and personalized and show you some of the numbers that I've seen within Bridge Loan Network. So in 2020, all of our lives changed, especially for lenders, right? A lot of lenders were in these massive offices where everybody could collaborate together. And we've seen a majority of those companies and these people shift to an at-home environment or a remote location. We saw a lot of people having challenges in the beginning with communication and understanding exactly what was going on with not only employees, but transactions and deals and workflows. Having some type of technology and centralized platform helped a lot of people over the last 2 years, a lot of companies solidify this new environment that we're working in. I touched on it earlier. For you as investors, if you have partners, vitally important to have your information in a location where multiple people can access it at a time. 46%, you see that number on the screen there, 46% was the number one challenge for people in this new environment. You saw cloud-based conferencing apps like the one we're using right now generated 4.1 billion in 2020 alone. Think about over the last 2 years how much they've actually grossed. You see some of the other numbers here. What I'm really trying to hammer home to you folks is the importance of technology is increasing. I've seen a lot of investors out there, guys. I don't want to mislead anybody out there. I have seen a lot of investors have a lot of success utilizing minimum technology. You know, they do the bare minimum. They may upload a couple documents to the lender, and that's where their technology stops. And they are still massively successful. It's possible. But as our environment change, as new tech offerings enter our space, the importance of technology continues to grow. These numbers are surely solidifying that. This 32% of workers said that their organization used the cloud store work documents in 2019. Very important, because as we continue to work remotely, the ability to access these documents in a centralized or cloud location, extremely important. Now, a little bit more personalized, some statistics that we've seen from Bridge Loan Network. So Bridge Loan Network, for you guys that aren't aware, we are a loan origination software. So we've got a number of lenders that use our platform. When borrowers and investors apply with those lenders, the loans live within our software. So these are some of the numbers that I was looking at that really stood out to me, identifying the importance not only for investors, lenders, but also brokers. Brokers, as I mentioned, are really starting to realize the importance of this technology as well. So from our inception, and that was in 2015, this software was produced, we actually have all-time borrower accounts, 14,551 all time. So those are accounts in our portal that was created through an application. So as I mentioned earlier, if you go and you fill out an application directly to a lender, typically you're going to get granted access to some type of a portal. We've had over 14,551 borrower accounts created all time. Now, the real number that stood out to me was 3,000 of those were in 2021 alone. So more borrowers entering the space, but also more of them leveraging the use of this portal, interacting with their lenders, and creating that strong relationship that I talked about very early on. Brokers, as I mentioned, also realizing the need for this type of technology. Between 2019 and 2021, so just the last few years, almost 5,000 broker accounts created on our platform. Again, just really going to show you that people are adapting softwares, they're seeing the importance and actually implementing these. On our platform now, we have a total of 377 lender accounts. A majority of those are actually active, so they're intaking applications, they're actually going through the process, creating those loans, working with their borrowers. And like I said, I expect this number for borrower accounts to created in 2022 to probably be almost double this number here. I think we're going to see a lot more applications come in. We're going to see a lot more involvement from investors and borrowers on those applications. And I think that's great for everybody involved. I'm a very firm believer that in our industry, everybody's success starts with investors. And I think that the more investors can leverage technology, and more importantly, the information within that technology, it's going to create a more successful business for everybody involved. I thank you all very much for the time today. That really wraps it up for my presentation here today. Rodney, thank you guys so much for the time. Are there any questions that we want to address at this time?
If you have any questions, please put them in the chat at this time and we'll get them answered for you.
Ronnie, you have any feedback on anything I had mentioned there in the presentation?
I really think it was a great presentation, you know, and we see it at Think Realty all the time where technology is just a driving force for investors now. I've been with Think Realty for 5 years, and when I started, you saw about 50-50 kind of local investors and the other half being, you know, multi-market.
Yeah.
Now that number is probably well over 85% of investors, at least the ones we work with, which are close to 250,000 strong. They are, majority of those are, I live in one state or I live in one market and I'm investing in 20, 30, 40 other markets. And that just continues to grow based on a lot of different things. So technology is going to be so vital for them as they grow and really to absorb that information and be able to utilize it. So some great information. And thank you so much, Jacob, for your input, which is amazing. So, uh,
And I bring it back to what you mentioned very early on in the call is, you've got the Houston event coming up. There's probably going to be some of these tech providers there. If not, you'll be able to find out about them from some of the other folks that'll be there. So, make sure that you're having these conversations, finding out the technologies that the lenders are using, find out what is available, because like I said, I only named a few of them here in our presentation, the technologies that are available for you as investors. There are new ones popping up every day, every week. As we start to go back to conferences this year, we're going to see new ones pop up. So, as investors, you really want to stay ahead of the game and make sure you're aware of all these offerings that are available for you folks.
well, it doesn't look like we have any questions. Apparently, you covered everything really well. So just a reminder, everybody, as soon as I get this uploaded into YouTube, I'll send this out recording to everybody that signed up. And I'll also send you the ticket information. So if you want to get a ticket to the event, we would love to have you come. So thank you again for joining us. And thank you, Jacob, for the presentation. Vital, vital, vital information. I can't say it enough. Vital information for any investor in 2022 to really grow their business, really just be kind of 10x. You mentioned Grant Cardone early, 10x your business. Technology is the way to do that. So thank you guys every so often for coming and joining us on this webinar, and
Always a pleasure.
Hopefully we'll see you all in Houston.
Absolutely. We'll be seeing you guys real soon. Thank you guys for the time. Appreciate it. Thank you for all that you do, not only for investors, but for everybody within the industry. We appreciate you guys.